for the background noise. We are literally on location at the Megaplex at Jordan Commons on 94th South here in Sandy. My name is Stephen Rodney, and welcome to a special review bonus episode of Geek News. You're probably wondering why I'm introducing this and not Adam. Unfortunately, Adam was not able to join us because this was very spur of the moment, very short notice for all of us, I believe. As I mentioned, I'm Stephen Rodney. I'm also being joined by Aldo Gomez.
Hello.
And Brenton Volley.
Hi, guys.
And many of you may also recognize from my little discussion on Huntsman's Winter's War, Matt Billingsley.
Be afraid.
And yeah, all four of us are here in the sort of lobby area of Jordan Commons because we've all have just seen Ratchet Clank, the new movie from Sony Pictures, to kind of jumpstart their whole, what I'm assuming is some sort of, hopefully not a shared universe, but a new line of movies based on the various games that they have created. And this is the front runner of it. And so I guess to start, we'll go around kind of explaining have we played the Ratchet & Clank games, and if so, how many, how far, how well versed are we in the quote-unquote mythos? In my case, not at all. I have never played them, so that's my little background thing. Let's kind of go around this way.
I've played the four main PS2 games for Ratchet & Clank, and didn't pick up any of the PS3 ones. So I've played them. I'm currently replaying through the first one, the HD collection, but that's about it for me.
For me, I had an old best friend of mine who played Ratchet & Clank nonstop. That was my exposure to it. I never had a PS2 or 3, so I never fully experienced it myself. It was just kind of like live Let's Play, I guess you could call it. But I did pick up the reboot game that came out a few weeks ago, and I'm absolutely enjoying it right now.
I've only been able to play all the way up to Deadlock on the PlayStation 2. Still need to get myself a PS3 and a PS4 so I can try out all the late games for the Ratchet & Clank series. So, and even then, I think right now, currently for myself, it's more blurry to what happened in those games. So, most of my opinion's a little fallen off from there on this Ratchet & Clank movie.
All right, so with that, I guess we can kind of say, the next question I'll ask is, how excited were each of us individually when they announced that they were doing a Ratchet & Clank movie? Now, in my case, never played the game, so I was just more indifferent because I'm coming as someone who's been burned by some of the previous video game movies. I was cautious and kind of indifferent. So how about you guys? Were you excited? Were you worried?
I was really excited, but that's because I've always been a big fan of, especially a lot of the PlayStation 2 icons. So I was really excited when they first announced it, and I was even more excited when they announced that the writers from the game were actually going to be writing the movie, and they were going to be involved with the whole process. So I was, from the get-go, I was very excited. I was stoked.
I would say that my thoughts and feelings on it were similar to yours, Romney, where I was a little hesitant and worried just because of how bad a rap video game movies do get. So I was worried, I wasn't entirely sure, and then they kind of presented the companion to the movie, rebooting the game. And I was like, I can finally play it. And the more I saw, and the freaking ice cream machine is now distracting me.
Somebody needs their fudge twist.
Needless to say, the more and more I saw of it, and the more they presented of it throughout the end of 2015, the more I did grow excited for it because obviously one, it's not live action, so I felt that they could actually present and create a film that was decent enough since it was animated, and it is just like Aldo was saying, they were bringing the writers of the original games onto the movie. They were bringing people who knew Ratchet & Clank inside and out, so that gave me a little bit more breathing room to be like, okay, give it a chance.
With Rainmaker Studios' work, I haven't seen their stuff for years. I think as a little kid, I remember their shows Reboot. I remember they did the Transformers Beast Wars series. So it's interesting to see their work come back. And as it comes with them being the ones adapting the film animation for the Ratchet & Clank movie, I was kind of more open-minded to the idea since I haven't seen anything from them in years. And again, they had the original team on this. So for me, I was more coming into this film with an open mind, just seeing what I was going to get. So based on expectations, I didn't have anything high or low. But feeling-wise, I think I got just about what I would have expected from this film.
Yeah.
I didn't feel the animation was it's not like revolutionary. I'm the guy who looks for the avant-garde, the nuance. I like to see that bit of animation that pops.
Well, that does make for a good segue. I was initially going to go with story, but since we've segued into it, what did you guys think of the animation? Now, personally, it looked like what you would see in a PlayStation game, so it didn't wow me, but at least it looked polished. It looked like I could see it like being like, it's kind of a case of almost wish I was playing it, because it looked like something you would see on the current generation systems.
I guess in a way you probably wish you were actually playing the game instead of just seeing the polished product that we got.
A little bit.
That's the funny thing. Like I said, I've been playing the reboot that came out a few weeks ago, and I was, and the first thing that came to mind, and I even mentioned this all to you before we started recording this, is that there are specific scenes in the movie that are the cutscenes in the actual video game. Now, I haven't finished the game yet, so there was like a part in the movie where I was like, okay, I have no idea what scenes from the movie are actually going to be in the game, but it is extremely polished. It's just very fluid. It plays very well, and watching the movie actually did give me that sense of urgency to be like, I want to like actually play this now. It made me want to play the game even more, and it was just so weird to me because I've like watched Hitman and other movies based off of video games, and it didn't give me that drive to go play the game. It was just kind of like I felt awkward. It felt very it just felt very unfluid, I guess is what I want to say. So I want to go play it right now really bad.
For me, it kind of felt like an additive experience to kind of playing the game, especially for me that I haven't played the new one, and I've only played the original and in the HD remake of it, or remaster, I guess. So for me, it felt very additive. It felt like it was just almost like a reward for like, hey, thanks for sticking with us for, a dozen odd years, and this is kind of the product of what we started 15 years ago. This is what we were aiming for, and it's like, cool. On that end, the animation also just looked fantastic. I thought, especially because it could have just looked worse.
Yeah, and I think we've all seen worse.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was kind of my worry. Was it looked decent, so in my eyes it looks good because I expected it to not look good at all. If that makes sense.
It's gonna sound the line of bad. I think bad animation goes to Sausage Party right now.
Yeah, Sausage Party, but I mean,
it's like I'm not against the film's making. It's just I have a personal issue with that. But animation-wise, this is much more polished. Like this feels like it's actually handled by an actual team of animators.
It's very high end of the middle of the spectrum. It's not up there at Pixar quality. It's not going to be winning any awards.
yeah,
but
unless
it's
Sony
solid.
bribes them. So.
Right. Which they might.
Well, yeah, and so at the very least, we can say it at least is faithful to like this visual aesthetic
Yes.
of the games. It feels like it's actually part of the game's universe.
Which one quick thing before before we move on is one of the things I always thought was very interesting was when you listen to a lot of interviews that they were making with the creators when they were making the game, when they were remastering it, and even when they were working on this new project for the movie and the game, was they said that their goal from the very beginning, making the first Ratchet and Clank, was to make it feel like you were playing a cartoon movie. Like that was their goal, and that's why it's always had like really cartoony visuals. And I think that now they've gone to the point where they're making a movie and you can play the movie. I think they reached their goal essentially, and it worked out very well.
Yeah, it's kind of reaching that point of singularity.
Yeah.
So moving on from the animation, since if you've played the games, it's pretty much in that same style. I think we can kind of all agree on that. Now, in terms of the story, and like I mentioned, I'm coming this as someone who's never played the Ratchet and Clank games. And so I guess the big thing I would have to say with the story of this film is that the pacing, it was very, very fast, almost uncomfortably so. Like, kept moving from place to place, and I'm just like, slow down a little bit. This is a lot to take in.
I did see little kids actually getting impatient with the film itself while we were seeing this. So I guess they're definitely feeling that. I was feeling a bit agitated by the pacing itself. But I guess they're trying to reboot this series with everything that's already built up in the Ratchet and Clank universe. So here they are just trying to put it all together. But because of story-wise, it's actually one thing I came to think while watching this movie is that with them coming out with the Sly Cooper movie now coming out, I kind of worry if they do the same thing with Ratchet and Clank, are they just going to reboot the series and just retell the same story? Because I think with a movie like Ratchet and Clank, it's probably going to more aim towards the loyal fan base. So when they have been able to like make a unique villain or give its own little story arc. So it's kind of weird that I do see this movie more like a commercial for the game itself rather than its own story.
Yeah, and I was kind of worried that it would get to kind of the level where, because we've all seen like those kids movies where they just fill it with constant noise. There were a few times where I was like, let's hope it got dangerously close to
Too
that.
much slapstick humor.
I actually thought of it the opposite. I didn't see it as an advertisement for the game. I actually saw the advertisement as I saw the game as an advertisement for the movie. Like it wasn't like a movie tie-in game. It was a video game tie-in.
The game would
I
probably
don't
make
know.
them more money otherwise.
Oh, yeah, no,
they're counting on the
definitely.
fandom who already plays the game. So
Yeah.
when they're gonna make the movie for the game, they're
Well, yeah.
hoping to get that $60 purchase.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And at the same time, a lot of the people who grew up playing those games are now adults with kids, and that's also why they're trying to kind of market it as well. And I keep cutting off Brenton, unfortunately.
Spread
Oh,
the
no,
plague.
Oh no, you're fine. For some reason, I've like completely forgotten the question.
Well, kind of, this is just more thinking of like, what did you think of the story? Were there any things?
Oh, the story. You're right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
story, characters, kind of the writing of the film is kind of what this would be.
Well, like I said, I watched a friend play it, and it was kind of like on and off. So it wasn't like we found a specific time to sit down and I watched him play a game. It was just kind of like I was just happened to be there. So I'm getting my first full like dose of what the actual story is, and right now from what I've seen, it's pretty parallel to what the 2002 release of Ratchet and Clank was, and I feel like they're just reviving the story, and based on like the ending that we saw in the movie, and again I haven't finished the game so I don't know if it's the same ending, but I'm assuming they may branch off into an entirely different story because it doesn't seem very familiar and it doesn't really match up to what I remember of the 2002 release. And I could be wrong because I've never actually played it or fully seen the ending to that release. So, and Aldo could probably shine more light than I could.
Yeah, I mean it does follow it. It follows a lot of the basic beats, but what this does a lot better than I think the game does. At least considering the 2-hour time span, is it really focuses on the relationship and friendship between Ratchet and Clank and essentially the Space Rangers. The problem with it is that the pacing for it is quick. It's very fast, whereas the game said 20 to 40 plus hours to kind of create that bond, because the very first meeting is Ratchet rescuing Clank, and he fixes him up and all these things, whereas in the game he finds him, the crash happens and he finds him and he picks him up and he's completely knocked out, and he just does this almost I'm stealing this thing where he picks him up, looks around, and then just leaves, and there's just a burning wreckage in the background, and he's like, this is mine now.
Well, and it's kind of the same case where I felt, because although I haven't played the games, I kind of know what the Omni Wrench is. It's kind of, the Omni Wrench is to the character what the Master Sword is to Link.
Yes.
Right.
And I do feel like, they kind of just like forced it in a little bit at the end to say, hey, yeah, that he's using the Omni Wrench.
I think the problem with that is, especially because in the video games, the Omni Wrench is like, it's your first tool, it's your primary weapon, it does a lot of the things that you need
to progress.
And it's very much a big part of that. And one of the things that they did, especially in the game from what I've seen from gameplay, is they kind of replaced it, not necessarily as a gameplay mechanic, they replaced the focus of it on his little grappling hook thing, which is something that you got after a certain point in the game originally. So they kind of switched the focus to that. I guess it's a little bit more flashier, and they probably want to avoid kids hitting each other with wrenches.
Good point.
But the thing about it was that little nod at the end where it we don't want to talk too much to spoilers.
Yeah.
But I mean, they bring out the Omni Wrench because obviously they kind of have to. It's a big.
It's part of his character.
It's part of his character. It felt less like a character thing and more like a, hey, this is that thing you remember from all those games for 15 years of games. This is it.
It definitely was kind of like a shout out to, oh look, I still have it. It's still here. I'm still Ratchet.
Yes.
You know, the character that you fell in love with back in 2002. Look at me. It's still here. So,
because they also tried to do that thing where they focused on his weaponry, which is a big staple of the franchise, is this ridiculous weaponry So I mean, they have like the Rain Cloud weapon. They have. I'm actually a little sad that they didn't bring out the Groovatron,
I
because the
was
Groovatron is one of my
super
favorites.
sad they didn't bring out the Groovatron. Like when they were going through like all the different weapons and
Yes.
Ratchet was using them in the like comical manner. I was just like, Groovatron, let down.
Yes, but they did at least give us a Shipinator, which does make an appearance, which is probably one of the more popular weapons that I think it was in the second game where it appeared, and it's just never left the franchise. So I feel like they were trying to focus on all that weaponry rather than the wrench, and it's kind of a weird balance. I can't blame them for not being able to find their footing on that.
I think the play on that is that they are trying to give you the fan service of having all the guns, but So they are trying to have all the guns in there for the fan service and all that, but the idea was that the story is about this character trying to be like the big hero, but coming back around to who he actually is that defines him as the hero. I'm trying to think what this story reminds me of. It reminds me of so many other of those hero stories that play this cliche, but the Omni Wrench plays its part in the end because it's
Yes.
just trying to show that Ratchet is himself as the hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
And
that.
one thing I do have to mention that I did enjoy is that I like how they brought in James Arnold Taylor to actually voice the character. I like that they brought a lot of the people who voice these characters from the games to voice them in this movie,
Yes.
which is definitely a huge step forward from what we've seen even from animated adaptations of games in the past.
Because I mean, I guess we're turning. I guess I just forced us to go the other direction in this thing, but that's definitely kind of a big thing because Quark, Ratchet, Clank, and I would say there was one other person, Nefarious, are all the same voice actors from the games. Everybody else got the celebrity treatment. So you had
you had Sly Stallone,
you had
you
Sly
had
Stallone,
John
Paul
Goodman.
Giamatti, John Goodman, Rosario Dawson. You had really big Hollywood names, and none of them were particularly the lead. And which like Romney just said, it's actually quite an interesting move forward, especially for Sony.
Well, yeah, but
I just want to say it's super refreshing because I feel like it's just Sony's way of really shouting out to its fans and being like, hey, look, we're making this project. We get that video game movies don't really get a good rap, but we're watching our backs and we want to do this right.
Oh, yeah. And even from the business perspective, and aside from placating the fans, it's also a case of, well, we want this to be consistent. It's a multimedia brand, and so obviously they want that consistency, because I know Capcom does a lot of the same thing whenever they dub any of the anime based on their games. They would say, no, you need to use the actors from the games. We want that consistency. And so I can see from a business perspective why Sony would want to do
Except that
that.
doesn't happen in the American releases.
Well, that's the thing. With the Devil May Cry anime, they brought in Ruben Langdon to play Dante. They brought in the voice actors for
Wait,
Lady.
that got dubbed?
Yeah, it got dubbed by Funimation, but Capcom specifically said, you're bringing in the voice actors from the games.
I never saw that dubbed.
You'd like the dub, because they bring in all the same
I love
people.
Devil May Cry, so... Also, Capcom, make another Darkstalkers game.
Yeah, but yeah. So both from a like rewarding the fan base, but it also makes sense from a business perspective,
Yes.
having that consistency across the brand, especially if they want people to start playing the games. Like, oh well, we want the characters to sound the same across media.
And I guess, also, I guess it's gonna sound almost insulting, but I guess financially it's also probably a little cheaper, considering that those types of voice actors are a lot cheaper to get than Sly Stallone.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably why the celebrity voices were very minimal.
Yeah.
Because, and this is actually part of a huge thing that we've covered on Geek News in regards to the whole impending SAG strike. I don't know if that's been resolved or not, but it is very much an issue where you have these established voice actors being paid less than these larger celebrities. But that's a separate topic for an actual episode, which, I mean, we don't have the kind of time to discuss that here, but it is an interesting point that even the actors who play these characters don't even get top billing. Because you notice how in the credits and in a lot of the poster, actors like James Arnold Taylor are like the fourth name down, and
Yeah.
it's often with James Arnold Taylor, he doesn't really get top
Yeah.
billing, which is to me kind of disappointing, but that's Hollywood for
It's
you.
still a
He's
smooth
the
forward.
motherfucking star, though.
I
Yeah,
know. It's just exactly what he said. It's Hollywood. I mean, Paul Giamatti was the first person to show up, and I was like, shouldn't we have gone with like Ratchet and Clank's voice
Well,
actors first?
though at least there could be argued that since his voice is the first voice we
Then
hear,
again,
That is a good point.
I was
will
gonna say
credit
on
that.
Jungle Book they put the kid. I'm trying to remember his last name.
Neil
Remember
Sethi.
Neil Sethi was the last thing.
Yeah.
On the
But
bill.
then again, with him, it also did say introducing.
yeah, because
his
that was
first
literally
role.
his first role.
But
Yeah,
like, geez
so-
Louise.
Yeah, to kind of bring it back to focus, I guess the
Anyways,
next
yeah.
question is, it's kind of a two-part. Would you want to go to a Ratchet and Clank 2 movie, And the second part is, are you excited for the other Sony movies that, based on like Sly Cooper and some of the other franchises that they're hoping to bring out?
Which comes back to my other thought is, if they did make a sequel to this, would they be basing it off the next games or so, or would they actually have the freedom to then make its own story now that it's in license with the games?
And that is a legit question, because we don't know what direction they could be heading. Are they going to be doing multiple movies on these franchises, or are they basically going to have one movie per franchise? And my hope, because they did have Easter eggs to some of the other games, I hope they don't try to do the Avengers route where they, although it would be fascinating to see where they basically make a movie for each one and then lead it to an All-Stars Royale movie, but...
So kind of like a PlayStation cinematic universe?
They're going for...
I hope they don't go that route.
You stole it.
I hope they don't, because for like the
Well, you can have it. It's yours.
The licensing for it, even though
Fine.
Sony does
Here
have the
you go.
licensing for everything, you still have to get down to the individual studios and kind of seeing what they want to do, because they have done this in the past where they've had the crossover with all the 3 PlayStation Icon heroes, and they did do these things. At the same time, I think for the sake of the integrity of the story, I don't think they want to, because the world of Jak and Daxter is so different from the one that's in Ratchet and Clank, even though the art styles are similar.
Yeah, and by that same token, Sly Cooper, that's a completely different genre.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's not even, that's a different genre and animation style as well.
Oh yeah, and you've got Uncharted and Last of Us movies being stuck in development hell right now as well.
So I don't think I would hope that they're not making a move towards a PlayStation universe. I think it'd be great if they just left them at their own thing and just kind of. I think it'd be great if they took turns. Like, hey, this year you're gonna see a Ratchet and Clank movie. Next year you're gonna see Sly Cooper. Next year you're gonna see Jak and Daxter, and then.
Is there Jak and Daxter on the way?
That's just me.
That's
hoping.
just kind of him speculating.
I kind of have a thought about that.
And so then once you do those 3 movies, then they're like, okay, guys, now we're gonna do the second round of each movie, and I think that'd be a good way for them to go. And they have that PlayStation brand, they have that connectivity. They don't have to go through a universe like everyone
Everyone and their mother, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't want to see that becoming a trend where like books made into films and the last book becomes 2 parts. I don't want to see like, oh, let's make cinematic universes, and it's like, no.
Oh, that 2-part cliche.
Yeah. Although,
Thoughts on that another time.
Although
Yes,
I think
that's
video
definitely for another
oh yeah,
occasion.
well, I guess back to the main question of, like, would we be excited? Are we excited for like what Sony will do for like for the franchise movies, barring the fear of the cinematic universe?
Yes.
Right. I would like to see a sequel. I feel like they set it up for a sequel, but whether they actually do it or not is obviously up to them. And I won't be overly disappointed if they say no, one-hit wonder. It's like, okay, that's fine.
Personally, I would think that I'll be fine if they actually made a sequel. I would actually encourage the sequel. I just think the next time they did do the sequel, let it be its own thing. So we're not comparing the idea like we're watching this movie when we could just go home on a PS4 and play the game instead. Just let it be part of the franchise, but let it be its own thing.
Yeah, like maybe fill in certain gaps that you don't like, because that's something I always mention on any review. Let it give justification, like why does it need to be a movie that and not in the games, to fill in certain corners that we don't get from the games, or give us certain insights that just the games wouldn't provide because of the interactivity of the medium.
Yeah, but I guess in the way that they did this movie based off the game that is essentially a reboot, I kind of have to say I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I approve it.
All right, I guess with that, I mean, personally, I'm excited for Sly Cooper because
Yes.
I'm a huge Sly Cooper fan. Not as much as my younger brother, though.
Sly
'cause-
Cooper was my favorite of the franchise. I love the jazz. I love the kind of a comedy noir. Is that a possible thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I just want Jak and Daxter.
It's unusual, but
It's not really noir. What would you call it?
I would call it kind of a mystery caper sort of thing. I mean,
It's-
it's
again-
not exactly noir. It's kind of before
In a
noir.
way, it's meant to be, as the guys describe the production of the game of Sly Cooper, they describe it as being a mix between James Bond and the Pink Panthers.
Yeah,
so.
James Bond, Pink Panther, a little bit of Ocean's 11 as well with the whole planning the heist.
Yeah.
and I mean,
And getting recruits.
Yeah.
And like Sly Cooper for me is Ratchet and Clank for you. I would be coming to it completely blind because I, during the PS2 and PS3 generation, I never had one. I got back into Sony with the PS4 generation, so all those games I've either watched friends play, have watched Let's Plays, and Sly Cooper is just one specifically I have not yet fully jumped into. So I'm looking forward to like to be a part of it. So I'm excited for it too, even though I have no idea what I'm getting into.
Well, yeah, and I guess that kind of leads to the next question. But although you look like you have something you kind of wanted to
Nope.
add. Oh,
I'm good.
I have,
Okay.
I have
I
a
added
lot
that
of
piece.
useless things I could add.
well, yeah, and I guess the last question, and again, in my opinion, I haven't played any of the games. But the next question, for the people who have played the games, would you recommend this film to someone who hasn't?
That's a good question.
I can recommend it for animation's sake.
I could recommend it. I think it does a really good job at bringing in like Easter eggs for people that have played the games, that have also been fans of the series and essentially that PlayStation 2 era. There's a few Easter eggs for that, but I think it also does a really good job at not getting into too much of a video gamey territory. They're not over explaining everything. Like they're like, this is how you summon your weapons, and then you're just okay, and then you just roll with the fact that they have a weapon that shoots like thunderclouds, and you're like, that's fine. So I could recommend this to a non-gamer as well to a fan of the series. I think it does a job. I think it does a good job on both ends.
I would say in a comparison, I have a little sister who likes to. I tried to get her to play the game Undertale since I've been talking so much about it, but she instead rather watch someone else play it. I kind of think that this would be a better comparison to a generation where Let's Plays are now a very big thing, but to the point where the kids aren't playing the games but are just being spoiled to someone else's experience. I would just think that I would recommend this on the account that it's hard to get people to want to play the games. That you would hope that if they saw this, they would want to play the games. I would recommend it. If anything, it's just a experiment.
You know, going off on that note, I sometimes will kind of watch a little bit of someone's Let's Play if I want to play a specific game to see, you know, are the mechanics something that I can handle, or is it interesting enough? Like, if it grasps my attention, watching somebody else's experience for a couple minutes, then I'll go ahead and put the money forth to actually experience it myself. And I think this is like kind of a good alternative to that.
You don't get the gameplay though, so.
Well, you
Well, yeah,
don't
but
get the
but it
game-
does introduce the world of Ratchet.
Which
Clank.
I would think that when it comes to Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, and the original Jack and Daxter games, it's a lot of the characters and stories that really stand out. Also,
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, and you know, that's just kind of what I was going for. You know, if the visuals and the story and the characters are what really drags you into it, just add it. Obviously, you controlling how they do it all, and you got yourself a video game.
Yeah, and so this very much is a film for both like fans and people who've played these games, and I guess I can definitely see like this is definitely a family movie. So
Yes.
unless you're like an animation fan like Matt, or if you're a fan of the games like Brinton and Aldo, I don't think it really has much appeal beyond that, beyond kind of as a family movie, as something to kind of show to kids. And honestly, I guess that next part of it would be, is this a movie that needs to be seen in theaters, or would you lose anything by seeing it on home media?
Honestly, I don't think you lose anything from seeing it in home media. It looks like they had a couple of shticks for 3D. I don't know if it was actually meant to air in 3D theaters. I mean, we're seeing an advanced screening.
Yeah.
So which we just saw in like a normal theater. So if there is a 3D screening for it, maybe. That's me also shrugging my shoulders.
I've never been a fan of 3D. I'd
Neither
rather
have
focus
I.
on the movie and just ignore the gimmicks, skip the gimmicks.
And honestly, I mean, this movie, one of my slight disappointments with it was they didn't have a lot of that tongue-in-cheek humor that the games are known for, especially like they name their games Up Your Arsenal or Going Commando. So the fact that there wasn't that much of a humor makes it a little bit more of a safe bet to see with your children, regardless if you're watching at home or in a theater.
Yeah. And I know we all kind of have different rating systems since we're kind of towards the end of it. And so I guess we can kind of go around giving the ratings. Because I know I have my rating scale. I think Aldo has kind of his different way of ratings. So I guess we'll kind of go around. In my case, aside from if you're a fan of the games or if you're a fan of animation, if, say, you're looking for something to watch with your kids, be it either as a rental or at a matinee, like 2D matinee, I would recommend this film for that as like a nice family film. I mean, it does get a little bit grating with the breakneck pacing, but well, you could do worse. In the words of Hitchhiker's Guide, mostly harmless. So, on that note, I'm going to give Ratchet and Clank a 3.5 out of 5.
My kind of rating, I don't really do ratings. I do like recommendations, and my recommendation is watch it. You don't lose anything by waiting for it. You also, there's also no reason to not watch it in theaters. So either way, I just recommend watching it whenever you want.
Yeah, I know that I've given like ratings with film reviews that I have done with Geek News in the past. But with my own specific channel, by the end of a Let's Play, I usually just do recommendations as well. And I'm right there with Aldo. You know, go have some fun. It's not... Ratchet and Clank is not supposed to be one of those, like, super serious movies like Batman vs. Superman failed to do. It's, it's supposed to be fun, lighthearted, and comical. And I definitely got that. And I will get that when I go home to play the game.
Yep.
Trying to think, I don't have my own actual rating system. I would probably best rate it based on my actual experience or feelings towards the film. I try to think how to describe it. For me, it's kind of more like you can learn to like it, but genuinely, I did like it.
All right.
And as said, unlike the last preview we had to see together, I don't have myself that new thought that there should be a flask out rating.
Well, yeah, this is very much like no flask needed.
It's like I have that new system now where if the movie is dull and frustrating, there's the flask out. But if the movie is like horrendous and terrible like the Lorax, I give it the walkout. or the refund.
Or, yeah, either the walkout, the refund, or like that would be like full sloshed would probably be the rating I'd give.
It's like with movies like Zootopia. I've seen that movie 5 times. I call that the can't get enough. So this movie, I'd say gotta like it.
All right, and with that pretty much brings kind of this roundtable special episode of Geek News to an end. So I guess there's the usual thing of where to find everything. I'll start by explaining where you can find the show, which is normally hosted on the main channel, which is Drac2326. It's hosted by our good friend Adam Mickelson, who unfortunately could not join us. Sorry, Adam. It was short notice. So
We love you.
We love you, Adam. And you're awesome. So yeah,
Send
you can
pictures.
So yeah, basically, you can always find the show on YouTube at Drac2326. You can also find us on Podomatic at Geek. Is it geeknews.podomatic?
No, I think it's Geek Week.
Yeah, Geeky Week.
Yes.
Yeah, geekyweek.podomatic.com, which is probably where this episode is going to be hosted. If you're listening to it right now, I don't know how. We're going to basically give this off to Adam and let him decide what to do with it. But yeah, those are the 2 places where you can find the show. You can also get a hold of us by email at geekyweek@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at geekynro. And you can also go to the Geek News Reviews and Opinions Facebook page and like it. That's where you'll basically get all the information of whether we're covering certain stories, whether we're asking fan input in regards to certain topics. Basically, a lot of the same usual stuff you get from the main channel as well. Now, as for where you can find me, you can always find me at youtube.com/StudioGhostUtah. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Romney'sReviews, no apostrophe. And I am also on Twitter at RomneyReviews.
You can find me on YouTube at Board Offline. You can also find me on the internet at boardoffline.net. You can find me on Twitter at BoredThresh. BoredThresh. Yes.
You can find me at YouTube. It's just my first and last name, which is spelled BRINTON and then VALLI. And then you can also check me out on Twitter at BValley01. So just my... Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, no relation to Frankie Valli, because for the record, Frankie Valli, that's not his real last name. But I know some people have asked and made that joke. And before people ask, yes, I'm related to Mitt, but it's a distant relation.
Wait, have people really asked if I'm related to Frankie Valli?
Well, I'm not sure if they have, but I know it would come up.
Well, I'm
Trying to sell off it.
No.
I definitely can't because I am not related to Frankie Valli. Like, I'm sorry, no.
This reminds me of the BoJack Horseman episode.
All right.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. Speaking of which, if there's any particular websites you would like to plug or promote where people can find you, Matt?
Well, I do have my YouTube channel, but it's a nasty work in progress, just like my room. You can find me pretty much anywhere online. It's Wretneck, WRETNECK, slurred Redneck. You can find me on Twitter. I have a Facebook page where I'm trying to post most of my artwork. I mostly post to Instagram. I do occasional posts to Tumblr. Twitter, I'm pretty active on there, but it's give or take with what I post there. With YouTube, I'm hoping to actually get some actual drawing videos, tutorials. In fact, I'm hoping to get a review show soon, so look for me there if you want to sit around and wait and see me actually do anything there.
All right, and with that, that brings this special episode of Geek News Reviews and Opinions to a close. I'd like to thank my fellow panelists for coming along, joining on this spur-of-the-moment venture. And unless there's anything anyone else would like to add, that pretty much is it.
Cleanliness is godliness, so don't wear a shirt.
All right, so yeah, Adam's a lot better at doing the outro than I am, so I guess thank you for listening, watching, wherever Adam decides to put this, probably listening, because we're trying to expand to Podomatic. So I guess all I can say is, for me, for Aldo, for Brenton, and for Matt, we'll see you all, well, hopefully later for an official episode of Geek News Reviews and Opinions, and, well, depending on when you're listening to this, but yeah, we'll see you all next time.
Bye!
Bye.
That was a stupid joke.
This special episode of Geek News Reviews and Opinions was produced and edited by Stephen Romney, who also composed the intro and outro music. Today's panelists were Stephen Romney, Brenton Volley, Aldo Gomez, and Matt Billingsley.